And tonight on the Daily Wrap, we knew Donald Trump is tough on immigration, but do you know how much his immigration plan would cost us? The number may shock you. Hillary Clinton getting angry over questions regarding her email scandal. But what may really be ticking her off is how close Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are getting to her in the polls. And yet another Planned Parenthood video has come out with an even more disturbing narrative. We've got all that, plus your viewer comments. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host Rick Unger. It's supposed to be the dog days of summer, and yet 1,000 things to talk about tonight.
It's remarkable. This is such a gift for those of us who do this for a living. August is usually nothing to talk about. We talk about our home movies and our vacations on television. Not this year.
Your co-host Michael Steele on Sirius says that this will be the most entertaining couple of months in political history.
Yeah, well, he's made some pretty bold predictions on our show on Saturday. Michael basically came out and said that the candidates will be Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
That's right. I heard that this morning.
I disagreed, by the way, but that's what he's saying.
Of course, you think that Sanders won't be in. Anyway, to his right, he's a former FBI special agent, a former Navy SEAL,
with a Trump hat.
Also doing improv as well downtown at the Comedy Cellar. When he isn't the president of Continued Services, Jonathan Gilliam with the Trump hat is here. Welcome. And finally, he is the assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine. No hats, no nothing, no frills, just Noah Rothman. Big smiles. Okay, everyone, let's get right to the Daily Download. 2016 Republican frontrunner Donald Trump is closing in on Hillary Clinton, really, now making the presidential race a competitive one. Check out this new CNN ORC poll today. Hillary 51, Trump 45. What makes that notable? Just last month, the margin was 17 points. In June, it was 24. So we got a horse race, everyone, and no doubt that's a big story, and it's also frustrating to both the Clinton campaign as well as Trump's Republican rivals.
If you're born here, you're an American, period. Period.
But there are many lawyers are saying that's not the way it is in terms of this. What happens is they're in Mexico, they're going to have a baby, they move over here for a couple of days, they have the baby. No, but Bill, they're saying it's not going to hold up in court.
Do you envision federal police kicking in the doors in barrios around the country, dragging families out and putting them on a bus? Do you envision that?
Bill, I don't think they have American citizenship.
All right, we talked about this somewhat last night. We're going to go a little deeper and talk about the 14th Amendment. We'll talk to the only lawyer at the table. First, in very layman terms, what is the 14th Amendment, and why do you think it will be so hard to get a constitutional amendment to modify it?
The 14th Amendment is a lot of things, but what's key to this issue, in this context, it basically states that if you are born in this country or you were made a naturalized citizen and you are subject to critical sentence, actually, the jurisdiction of this country, then you are a citizen. Okay. Now, Mr. Trump went on Bill O'Reilly last night and made the argument that essentially that the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. I don't think a part of the Constitution can be unconstitutional because it's the Constitution. So I'm not quite clear how he gets to that. But nevertheless, the reality is that there have been efforts to make the case that certain people aren't covered by the 14th Amendment. Those efforts were made over 120 years ago, and for a brief 14-year span, it actually was the law because the Supreme Court came down in a certain way. I won't get too technical about it, but it was overturned by the Supreme Court. That made it clear that anybody born in this country subject to the jurisdiction means you are obligated to obey the laws of the United States. If you're born here and you're obligated to obey the laws, you are a citizen. So anchor babies, no anchor babies, like it or not, that is the law. You can change it if you want, but it would take, you can challenge it in court, right, and I think you'd lose, but you can do it, or you can look for a constitutional amendment.
No, well, let's talk about the cost that I've been heard bandied about as far as if you were to deport 11 million illegal immigrants. Not even so much the cost, but the time as well. I've heard anywhere from 20 to 40 years logistically it would take to get that many people out of the country. So I guess my question is, Trump is a smart guy. He knows this. Is this more of just a symbolic statement you think he was making, saying we have illegals here and we need to do something about the problem?
Yeah, none of this is actionable policy. All of this is throat clearing and positioning statements. If we were to pretend as though this was a feasible approach, his plan calls for the tripling of ISIS, which is also the budget, and as well as their 20,000 individuals. So you're talking about 80,000 people. To get 20 million individuals out of this country, wherever they may be, you're going to require a lot more than that. It would require something on the order of an army, an occupational force, in order to get these people out of this country. And then his process is actually amnestization. It's to take these people, remove them from the country to their countries of origins, which is everywhere, all over the planet.
It's and not just Mexico.
Not just Mexico, and primarily actually Central America. Mm-hmm. And then you're talking about finding the terrific ones and bringing them back into the country so they can be amnestized. This is the most costly amnesty program that we've ever encountered in this country.
And it's even worse than that. Everything Noah said is correct. But what we have to add to that is, like it or not, these people are entitled under law to due process. They get to go to a hearing to see if they should be deported or not. So now you have to add all those judges and all those courtrooms to it. The estimate has been, what, 166 billion?
We've heard a lot of them,
I
but it's
promise
not cheap.
you that is way, way low. And that's based on a process that would take 5 years. I guarantee you this couldn't be done in less than 20. You're looking at $1 trillion here, folks.
So let's say, Jonathan, that Trump were to go to court or try to get a constitutional amendment if he became president, and then he failed. He could say, look, I tried, all right, this is what I wanted to do. Is a more feasible option to take anybody who's been convicted of a crime here that's illegal and at least deport them? In other words, I'm trying to find how a sensible way to do this that would appease people that would elect him.
I think that would be the first thing, besides building a wall, or in my case what I was saying, building bases and a wall along the borders to secure it so nobody else comes in.
Explain your bases idea first. I hadn't heard that yet.
So I think, we have all these different military bases all over the country, and under Donald Trump, rightfully so, I think we should build up the number of people that want to join the military. If you want to be in, let them be in. And then you build military bases along the border where where it's feasible, so that you have military operations, training exercises, and constant patrols along those areas, as well as a wall where you can do that. It's going to increase the manpower unbelievably. So the first problem, though, we have is not letting anybody back in here illegally, because if we just start deporting people, they're flooding in here at such a rapid rate that you would just be, constantly cycling people through. After you get it secured, then I say we look at the people who are doing harm. Secondly, we look at the people who've been here multiple times and deported because they're felons. And then you start looking at who does things right and who's doing things wrong that live here. Now, one thing you have to realize is that law enforcement, we already have the manpower. So when you say this is going to cost this much money, the manpower, which is one of the biggest costs, those people are already at work. It's not really, yeah, but we have a lot.
Not for Trump's proposal, maybe for yours, right.
Yeah. So we do have the people there, the manpower to do some of this stuff. But I think overall, the other part of this thing that we need to look at is, why are people coming here? Are they coming here specifically to have a baby so that they can then have that baby here? That is something I think that the Constitution can look at, and constitutional scholars should start looking at. If your sole purpose is to come here and get a baby and have a baby in here.
The Constitution does not give you those definitions. It just doesn't.
No, what I'm saying is
you can change it.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to change anything, that's what you should be changing.
I think there's a fundamental assumption here that's actually a little erroneous, in that the only people who come here to have children are illegal immigrants who are poor and destitute. That's fundamentally not the case. Sure. You have very wealthy individuals from other countries coming here to want to have American citizenship, and they have their children in New York hospitals in order to have access to citizenship and education and all the associated benefits.
Part of the report when you fill out to come in here should be, if you're 9 months pregnant, you can't come over here.
Right. All right.
But they're not filling out the report. They're coming illegally. That's the issue.
Exactly.
So quickly, we always talk about turning points with Trump, and will this hurt him, and will things finally begin to reverse themselves as far as polls? Does this hurt him, or stay the course because it's a strong message regardless of whether it's pragmatic or not?
I think the people who love it, and they're going to continue to.
Jonathan?
I think so.
Hard to say. People aren't looking at serious stuff. So
okay, we'll leave it there. We want to know what you think about Donald Trump's comment about anchor babies. Should the Huffington Post move him to the politics section of their site? We want to talk about that a little bit later. But first, let us know by going to newsmaxtv.com/comments. And if you want to make your own, or get your own, Make America Great hat again, just like the one Donald Trump wears, go to the newsmax.com/TrumpCap or go to 1-800-933-8396. Coming up more Daily Wrap in just a moment.